Hello everyone, welcome back to Turing Machine. This is a logic puzzle, meta puzzle game, which I have already introduced on my channel, so if this is the first time you're seeing this game, I'm not going to explain all the rules, so go back and look at the first video. Once again though, so let's say, not once again, but rather this time, we're going to be playing on hard difficulty, so it's a solo challenge, hard difficulty with 5 verifiers, but classic mode. Still not introducing any of the weird modifiers. Nightmare and Extreme are what they're called. I'm going to first explain what's different in hard mode, which is not much. But if you want to play along at home, this is the code you can paste into the website to give you back this table, which you can import into Tabletop Sim. As I've done here by copying the table and then pasting it and then clicking Submit. If you're playing in Cardboard, obviously these are the numbers you want, so I'm now going to get rid of them. Okay, so what's new in hard mode? No, rules changes. They've just put in more complicated cards. These two are cards that could have been included in easy, or at least in medium, standard mode difficulty. I know basically the verifiers are split into 3 groups. The lowest numbered group is considered easy, and so easy games only include those. This is definitely an easy card, for example. This one, I don't know. It might be easy. It's probably medium, though. Maybe? I don't know. Standard. And I think, yeah, definitely, all 3 of these are only available in hard mode. They're more complicated kinds of questions. And the most important thing that a new player will get wrong about hard mode verifiers is that in easy mode verifiers, easy and standard, classic, whatever, standard, yes, the criteria are all mutually distinct, mutually exclusive. So if you, for this one, for example, let's look at this one. If you propose a query that has an odd sum, and you ask B, and it says, nope, I don't like that, then you know that B isn't testing for odd sum, and you also therefore know that it definitely is testing for even sum. And that means you can kind of say, oh, well, since it said no, it wasn't testing for odds, then it must not be the case that the sum is odd. Which seems like so straightforward. Of course you can say that, right? But let's look over here at one of the hard mode ones. Suppose we create a query with a 4, with purple being 4. And I say, what do you think of this, C? And it says, no, I don't like that. We can conclude, therefore, that it wasn't checking for purple being 4. But we can't conclude that in the final solution, purple is not 4. We just know that that's not what C is checking for. Maybe C is checking that yellow is 4. And it so happens that purple is 4 also, but that's not C's problem. So you can only really mark off what things these are testing for, and then once you've got those narrowed down, then there's a unique code you can derive. You can't really use these verifiers to tell you directly about the code. All they can tell you is what they're verifying, and then once you figure out what they're verifying, you can start making inferences about what the code is. So this is just a slightly harder version of the thing we saw before that said we had a unique largest number in the first game. This one is saying, Well, there's a number that's the smallest, but it doesn't have to be unique. It could be tied. It just means there's no numbers smaller than it. So in the last game, I said, oh, for example, 331 would be an impossible code because there wouldn't be a unique largest number. Here, as far as this verifier is concerned, 113 could be valid because there could be a tie for smallest number, and that would be okay. And then we have this one, which is kind of a similarly more complicated version, I guess. A differently more complicated comparison. So, it's testing one of the numbers and confirming that it's either the largest or the smallest, and we don't know which. Okay, cool. So I already see some exciting deductions we can make. I probably haven't seen all of them yet, but I see some. So I'm going to say, if you want to, play along with me, this would be a good time to pause the video and enter this code. The code is also in the video description if you'd like to just copy and paste it. And there should be a link to turingmachine.info there as well. But you can surely just type that in your browser, you big baby. Anyway, so, all right. I'm going to assume you're back or you never left, and let's get started on this puzzle. What can we say? Well, first of all, there aren't 3 threes. You can always make this deduction when a card like this appears. It's impossible for there to actually be 3 of the thing it's saying, because then all the other verifiers would be redundant. Superfluous is what the rulebook says. Could there be 2 threes? I think so. Why not? Yeah, that seems possible. So let's write down that there aren't 3 threes. There are 0 to 2 threes. How about this? We can't really deduce anything immediately from this. We know there's at least one 4. Could be 3 of them, for all we know. It's the interaction between D and E that I think is going to be the most profitable. And the reason it's going to be useful is we can actually already eliminate half of the possibilities on E, just based on D being around. The point is, if E told us which number is strictly the smallest, then we wouldn't need D to solve the puzzle. D would be giving us less information than E does. It would tell us what's smallest or tied. But we would already know something is smallest and not tied. So we could do this and still solve the puzzle if E said anything about smallest. So there might be a unique smallest number, but E can't tell us about that. So what we can do then is write in E that it's unique largest. So we know it's one of these 3 criteria. Those are the only 2 criteria that really jump out at me. Or the only 2 deductions that jump out at me. Could we... we know there's at least one 4. And I guess if we found out which one is the 4... and also found out, for example, that that number is tied for the smallest, that would sure tell us a lot. Because we would know there would be 2 4s and a 5. Because something else must be the largest. But that would be... that would be impossible, right? I don't think there can be 2 4s and a 5 in this code. There's not some easy way to write this deduction down to keep a note of it, but just for education here, suppose that there were 2 4s. Obviously, we'd be told about one of them here. Oh, you know what? This isn't quite true, is it? I was going to say, suppose like yellow and purple were 4s. And we were told, yellow is tied for the smallest. Okay, great. Then I would know, like, that blue is the biggest, let's say, and that's how I would know it's a 5. Because it's the one that isn't a 4. Then this would be redundant, because I would already know the parity, and frankly, so would this. But that's only if this told me yellow is 4, and this told me purple is somehow also told me, well, no. And then this also told me that yellow is tied for smallest. So in that case, I would know there are 2 4s and a 5. Because this one would definitely have to tell me about one of the other colors. I don't know which. So I guess what I can say is that C and D can't be talking about the same color. Because if they were, then I would know the digits are 4, 4, and 5. And A and B would be superfluous. Okay, that's actually kind of cool, I think. Because if I ask C about a color and it says, nope, not that color, I can make sure to ask D about a different color. And I'll have narrowed down one of these two exactly as a result of that, I think. Because either one of them will give me a yes, or they'll both give me a no. What happens if they both give me a no? Wait, maybe I still haven't narrowed it down. Like, if I know this isn't blue and this isn't yellow, I know one of them is purple, but I don't know which. And then when I find out which is purple, I'll know what the other one is. Okay, so in 3, there's sort of... from first principles of not finding this uniqueness constraint that I saw, or distinctness constraint here, it sort of looks like there's 9 possibilities here, right? They can't be the same. They can each be any combination. This can be one of 3 times this, which can be one of 3. There's 9 possibilities. But since they can't be the same one, I think we've narrowed it down to 6 possibilities. That's nice. That's cool. So let me write that down before I forget. There's not a great way to do this, but I'll just write a random note in F. C and D diff colors. Okay, so let's compose our first query, I guess. And I want to make sure to hit E and D and C in this, I think. Because they each have 3 possibilities. Well, but A also has 3 possibilities, right? If there were 2 3s... Hang on. Could there be 2 3s? Is that possible? No. There can't be 2 3s. Because if there were 2 3s, we'd know the other digit is a 4, and we would have the parity. And frankly... Yeah, we wouldn't know. Yeah, we'd even know if there were 2 3s, this would have to tell us something, and those 2 would be enough to tell us the entire code exactly. So there can't be 2 3s. I wrote down that there's 0 to 2, but actually there is 0 to 1 3s. Yes. So A and B each have only 2 possibilities right now, whereas C, D, and E each have sort of 3. C and D are a little bit less constrained. More constrained, I mean, in that between them they only have 6 instead of 8. I guess that's one way to look at it. There's 18 possible universes among C, D, and E. Whereas if I throw out, let's say I don't ask about C and I ask about A instead, then there's only 2 times 3 times 3. I guess it's the same. I don't know. I'm not, whatever. Screw this. I'm going to ask about C, D, and E this round. You can't stop me. So to do that, I want to make sure that I have one shape uniquely largest, let's say purple. And I have one that's a 4. And I want something that is the smallest. Let's say 2. Why not? That seems to ask pretty good questions of C, D, and E. So that's what I'm going to guess in round 1. 2, 4, 5. Let's start with C and D because I'm excited about those. Let's do D because it interacts with both C and E, in fact. So D does not like 2, 4, 5. Let's cross out F. So what does it mean that D doesn't like 2, 4, 5? Blue is not the smallest. So at least one of the other numbers is smaller than blue. Okay, let's write that. Blue not smallest. Yeah, it's the T. Whenever I type T, it copies something to the clipboard. I don't know why. Oh, you know what? I bet it's like a game key here. Options, game keys. Nope. No, it's not T. I don't know. So if blue is not the smallest, we can make at least one further deduction. Blue isn't 1. And since we didn't find out what D is specifically asking about, we can't say like anything about C yet. But let's ask about C next. Let me just confirm that we're going to learn something here. We're going to learn whether C is talking about yellow. And we don't know whether D is talking about yellow, so yeah, that seems fine. Card C also dislikes 2, 4, 5. So let's X that bad boy out. Hang on. I wrote blue not smallest. But that's not correct. I made the same mistake I warned about at the beginning of the video. What I mean to say is that it's not required by this verifier that blue is the smallest. So I guess I should... That's still the right thing to write here, but it doesn't entitle me to conclude that blue isn't 1. Because maybe this verifier cares about yellow being the smallest, but yellow is tied with blue. Maybe the code is 114. I think that might be possible. I don't see any obvious reason that it couldn't be 114. Okay, so blue not smallest, remember, does not mean that in the final code there is a number smaller than blue. It just means that verifier D doesn't care if there's a number smaller than blue. Okay. So now back to what we're actually doing. C. We checked C, and it does not like this. So it's saying... yellow, maybe not 4. Because, again, we just know C doesn't care if yellow is 4. We don't know that it's not the case that yellow is 4. If there were 2 4s and yellow was one of them, No, in this case, we actually do know yellow isn't 4, right? Because we know there aren't 2 4s in the puzzle. Because if there were, we'd fall into that trap we had before, where C, D, and E would together uniquely define the code, and we wouldn't need A or B. Maybe it's just C and E. I guess it would be, right? Yeah, if there were 2 4s, hang on. Would that actually uniquely determine it? If C... Oh, God. If yellow were 4, C would still be telling us about some other 4, but it wouldn't be telling us about yellow being 4. It would be telling us that, let's say, purple is 4. And D... If the code were 5 4 4, for example, D would have to be telling us about yellow, I guess, saying yellow is the smallest. Purple is what C would be telling us about, and E would be telling us blue is the biggest. So we would certainly know E is 5, blue is 5, purple is 4, and D is 4 or less. But we wouldn't know that it's exactly 4. I think we would be... In that case, would there be some reason one of these would be superfluous? Because if A told us, oh, there's a 3 in the puzzle, well, obviously it can't if we're thinking about there being 4 4 5 or something like that. But it would tell us there's no 3s. And then I don't think B could narrow down, could actually make it unique, right? Because all it could do is tell us the parity of yellow. It could tell us, oh, yellow's either 4 or 2, or it's 1 or 3. It couldn't tell us which. No. Because it would be telling us there's no 3s. Oh, but in the universe I'm imagining, there are 2 4s. So it would be telling us even, and this would say there's no 3s. Or it would be telling us odd, but it would be telling us that orange is even, because we already know what purple and blue are. So it would be telling us it's even, and there'd be no way, really, to tell 2 and 4 apart. Right? I think that's true. So I think in this case, we can actually conclude there aren't 2 4s in the puzzle. And I knew that before I started asking any of these questions. I think I claimed it earlier, but I hadn't thought it through all the way. Because if there are 2 4s, this is telling us about one of them. This would have to tell us about a different one. Well, if it told us about the same one, we could easily prove that these 2 are superfluous. If it told us about a different one, then we would know there's a 4 and a 5, and the parity of the other one is even, but you could never narrow down whether it's a 2 or a 4. So yeah, there can't be 2 4s. So if C tells us it doesn't care whether yellow is a 4, it cares about something else being a 4, it must actually be the case that yellow is definitely not 4. So I think I was too hasty making such a deduction when I said blue isn't the smallest, and I marked, oh, it's not 1. But for this case, I think it's actually correct. This one's a little tenuous. I could easily be beyond my depth here. Okay, next question. I wanted to ask C, D, and E, and I've already talked to C and D, so E must be my next plan. E likes that 5 is the largest. Yeah, obviously 5 is the largest, but purple is the unique largest. Remember, we already ruled out that it could possibly be looking for the smallest number. It must be looking at the largest number, and that largest number is purple. So we'll put a little check mark there. We'll cross off purple being 1. And we'll write in here that purple largest. And actually we can delete this because we no longer need to know that there is a unique largest. We know purple is the largest. And you know what? Let's celebrate with a little circle. You're supposed, like, the game recommends you take notes in the white section and then write the actual criteria in the green checkmark section, which is what I'm doing here, but I don't know, the circle's still fun. So if purple is uniquely the largest, I guess there's some more we can do. We can say blue and orange definitely aren't 5 either. Okay, a pretty good round 1, I think. Not bad. We solved E. Yeah, we can guarantee solving it in one more round, right? We solved E. We don't know which color C or D is talking about, but one more question will tell us both. I think. Right? It must. If not, I'm bad. Because let's see. C and D, we know C isn't talking about yellow, and D isn't talking about blue, and they're both not talking about the same number. So one of them is talking about... Well, okay. I think what I'm supposed to do is ask one of them about purple. Let me confirm that that will actually tell me what both of them are talking about. Let's say I ask C about purple, and it says yes. Well, that doesn't solve the puzzle for me, does it? So I know C is talking about purple, but I still don't know if blue is talking about... No. D isn't talking about blue, and it can't be talking about purple, because that's what C is talking about. So it would be talking about yellow. Okay. Great. But what if I ask C about purple, and it says no? Then I'll know C is talking about blue, but I won't know what D is talking about. It could be yellow or purple. So I'm not supposed to ask C about... I'm not supposed to ask either of them about purple. Really? Did I make a mistake here? In not a logical mistake, but just like a strategic mistake? Should I have asked them about the same color? That's stupid. This is confusing. So let's say I ask C. I mean, if asking it about purple doesn't guarantee solving the puzzle... Should asking it about blue somehow help? I don't think so. Because if I ask it about blue and it says yes, I haven't learned anything about D. And I'll still have to ask D. So somehow... There were originally 9 possibilities between these two. My ahead of time logic ruled it down to just 6. And you shouldn't need more than 3 questions to decide between 6 possibilities, if you can wipe out half the possibilities every time. But I've somehow put myself in a position where I'll need 4. Was I supposed to ask them both about the same color? I think I was, actually. Because then if I ask C, and it says, oh yeah, I like yellow, then alright, I don't want to ask D about yellow, I'll just not ask it about anything this round. And then next round I can ask it about one of the other two colors. And they'll know it's not yellow and it's the other color either is or isn't. Because I asked about two different colors, I actually can't guarantee that I can solve these with just one more question. Wow, interesting. Okay, so a strategic mistake there, huh? So I guess I should have composed 445, even though I know that can't be the answer. Because that's a way I could have asked C and D about the same number, same color. Well, but hang on, if I had done that, could I tell which thing it's ruling out? That's the problem. I couldn't, right? If I'd asked C, if I suppose my number were 445, and C said, yep, you got me, that was it, then I'd know that this isn't blue. And I'd know this one isn't blue. No. All I would learn is that that isn't blue. And if I ask this one, I would either learn that it is blue or isn't blue. So I don't know if there was actually a way to construct questions that could guarantee doing this in 3 asks. Huh. Interesting. Okay, well, I'm bad, I guess. Or maybe, I don't know. I like this game. There's a lot going on at multiple layers. And I just didn't even think through. I thought, surely, if I ask to narrow down a third of the possibilities here and a third of the possibilities here, I'll be down to just 2 possibilities total. But no, because some of the ones that I eliminated were like the redundant ones that I had already eliminated before asking any questions. Okay. So I still need to talk to both C and D, perhaps. Half the time, if I ask C, I might get lucky. Likewise D, you know. If I ask about purple, I could get lucky. And if I ask about yellow, I could get lucky, you know, either way. Because whatever I ask, or not yellow, because I already know C isn't yellow, right? But if I ask C about blue, it'll either tell me, yeah, it's blue, or no, it's purple. So no matter, as long as I ask about blue or purple, I'll find out which it is. And one of those will let me solve D, and the other won't. So let's try making blue a 4? Because that would be kind of interesting to know, right? Because we know it's uniquely largest. Or wait, no, purple's uniquely largest, isn't it? Yes. All right, well, let's try making purple 4 then. And blue... I don't want blue to be smallest. Let's try making blue a 3 so we can ask A if we want to. And make orange 1. Sure. That seems okay. So that's my question for round 2, 3, 1, 4. And I want to ask C about 4s. Is purple a 4? Is it in fact the only 4? Because we know there's not 2 of them. We proved that. Yes, purple is a 4. Okay, great. So let's put a check mark here. We asked C, And so we've learned that purple is a 4. And this confirms my deduction earlier that there couldn't be more than one 4. It doesn't prove the deduction was right, but it proves the conclusion was right, at least. Because we know that purple is 4, and it's uniquely largest, so there can't be any other 4s. Now, if blue... Right. We now know... This did solve D. Because D wasn't talking about blue, and it can't be talking about the same color as C, so it must be talking about yellow. Yellow is tied for smallest. But okay, first let's maybe update some of this stuff. Purple is 4. And nothing else is 4. And we've already got it narrowed down pretty well, right? There's only a few possibilities left in here. And we can say yellow smallest. Could be tied. So I don't think we can eliminate 3, 2, or 1 from any of them. Because if they're the same, then yellow will definitely be smallest. I can get rid of this note about C and D referring to different colors, except I can't fucking click on it because it goes up here instead. Fuck me. I hate this fucking game. Okay. So that's what we learned about C and D. We've solved them. Oh, I was putting little circles in to celebrate that, wasn't I? So purple's the 4, yellow's the smallest. So we can guarantee a solution this round now, because we can narrow down A and B in the worst case. Perhaps we don't have to. That would certainly be interesting, wouldn't it? I feel like we probably are not going to be able to. Because... Okay, let's actually... If there were... Actually, that's interesting. Maybe. What if there were exactly 1, 3? Would that help somehow? Would that let us, solve the puzzle without looking at this? Well, if there were 1, 3, it would certainly have to be blue. Because yellow is the smallest, right? No, but yellow could be tied for small. Oh, but right. But if there's only 1, 3, there's not a tie. 3 would be smallest. Or 3 wouldn't be the smallest. So, if there's 1, 3... then we would need the parity on this to solve the puzzle, but that would let us uniquely solve the puzzle, getting both of these. How about if there were 0, 3s? Would parity let us solve the puzzle? I don't think so. It would, wouldn't it? If there were no 3s, then blue and yellow would have to be chosen from among 1 and 2. There are 2 different ways for them to be the same parity, and so we could say, well, that can't be the case because we could never distinguish. But there's only one way for them to be different parity, right? So... we would have to conclude that those 2 are different parity in order for there to be a unique solution. So I think then we're supposed to ask A first, because if A tells us there's a 3, then we have to ask B as well. But if A tells us there's no 3s, then we can avoid asking B. So let's talk to A now. A says there's no 3, which that's the good news, right? That solves it, as I recall. Let me just double check, but A says there's no 3. So we can cross these out as well. Update the text to say 0 3s. Oh, and even though it's not really necessary, I'm going to celebrate with a circle. So, given all of this, if we ask B what parity things are, and it tells us, oh, the parity is even, well, then we can't really solve the puzzle, right? We know it's either 224 or 114, but both of those are even. And none of our other clues can help us with splitting those two cases apart. So it must be, then, that parity is odd. Circle. And so these are the 5 constraints, and it should be telling us 2, 1, 4. So let's draw the circles in, but I want to confirm before I submit at least that these 5 constraints do uniquely determine 2, 1, 4. So if purple's 4 and the largest, then uniquely largest, then it would have to be the only 4. And there are no 3s. Yellow is the smallest, or tied, and parity is odd. Yeah. So this uniquely determines 2, 1, 4. I don't think I did anything wrong on the way getting here. I guess I could review my deductions. Boy, it's so much work, but I would really hate to keep fucking up these puzzle videos. So, how is it that we concluded that purple should be 4? Well, we asked C and it said, yes, purple is 4. So that one's pretty solid gold, right? We're going to give that the old check mark. How do we know there are no 3s? We asked A, is there 1 3? And it said no. And we proved earlier that there couldn't be 3 3s. And there couldn't be 2 3s either, because then A and C would uniquely solve the puzzle without needing B, D, or E. So I'm pretty happy that A is correct. Parity is odd. We haven't even asked about. We just deduced that after getting the others. So let's check this. How do we know that purple is the largest? We asked E about 2, 4, 5, and it said yes. So that's definitely true as well. Purple is definitely the largest. Now, what about D? How did we figure out this is the smallest? It was this C and D different colors thing. But we asked specifically D, is blue the smallest? And it said no. Well, it said it doesn't care if blue is the smallest. And we already know that purple isn't the smallest, so it must have been referring to yellow. It must have been saying yellow is at least as small as blue. So I think this is also correct. And then from all of this, we're just back to the parity argument that we just made, right? If we know this is a 4, and yellow and blue are both constrained to be 1 or 2, they can't be the same parity, because there's 2 ways for that to happen, whereas there's only 1 way for them to be different parities. So I think this is all solid gold, and the answer is 2, 1, 4. Let me go type that bad boy in. 2, 1. Let me actually make sure this is the same. I didn't somehow load a different game. 34, 42. Yeah, this is the right game. Okay. Test a code. I said the code is 214. Verify. This is the correct solution. I didn't screw it up. And we did it in relatively few questions. I don't know if something better was available, but I think this is an okay score for hard with 5 verifiers. So let's see what the machine did. Tell the machine what we did, I guess. I got no's on C and D on a yes on E. And I got a no on A and a yes on C. Yes, the machine took 7 questions over 3 rounds, and we did it in 5 questions over 2 rounds. So I don't know. I just love this, figuring out stuff without asking questions. The whole meta puzzle element of okay, great, I can solve the puzzle by asking you questions, but by knowing the rules of how the puzzle is constructed, I can avoid asking many of the questions that otherwise it looks like I have to ask. I know there are some puzzle-solving circles that don't like that kind of thing. I don't know. If you watch Cracking the Cryptic, for example, sometimes they'll talk about uniqueness arguments and say, oh, well, this digit can't be a 3 because if it were a 3, then we could never tell which of these other 2 digits is a 5 or whatever, something like that. But they don't like to do that. They don't like to argue from uniqueness, and they say, fine, I'm going to find some other way to prove that this can't be a 3 or whatever it was I said. And there has to be another way. So they're always going to find it because the puzzle is actually designed to have a unique solution. But I always loved the idea of, and I think I did this some in Temezi as well, of arguing from uniqueness and saying, well, I know there's a unique solution, and if this were a mine, then there couldn't be a unique solution because you would have a guess between these 2 cells or something like that. I always thought that was very clever. And this game, that's a core part of the game is you know there's a unique solution, and that allows you to avoid making... I guess the difference is that in Sudoku, you don't ever get to ask any questions. You have to solve the whole puzzle from the givens. I mean, unless you're playing with fog or whatever. But I guess then you don't get to ask any questions. You just get confirmed that you're right, and if you were wrong, you go throw yourself off a cliff. Whereas in this, it's expensive to gather new information. And while it could solve the puzzle more easily to gather new information, it's much more exciting and interesting to prove that new information without having to gather it. And so we were able... I mean, I erased some of the stuff that we had deduced early, but it's kind of cool to figure out that there couldn't be 2 4s in the puzzle because of how this and this and this interacted? Or, well, this and this, I guess. No, we needed more than that, right? I think it was C and... It needed several of them to prove there couldn't be 2 4s. Working out that these 2 were talking about different colors was cool. Proving that there couldn't be 2 4s was more difficult. Because if there's a 4 and a different unique highest digit, and this thing tells you about one of the others, let's say, we needed C and D and E and... I don't remember. Somehow A or B made the other one obsolete in the case that there were 2 4s. And it turned out this wasn't even a useful deduction to make, right? Because we ended up finding out that the 4 was the unique largest. But I was very pleased with the proof that there can't be 2 4s, because it's more subtle than it looked, and I incorrectly claimed it before I proved it. I said, oh, I've proved this, and I was wrong. And then later I realized I hadn't proved it, and I had to go back and reprove it. Anyway, so that's a hard game of Turing Machine. Took quite a bit longer than the easy one, or the standard one. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.